Well, a Travis County official going before Congress. Judge Andy Brown testified in front of a U.S. House committee today, saying he believes the state's new election law makes it harder for people's votes to count.
We've got registered voters, people who have the right to vote and are eligible in every other way to vote, trying to vote, and they're being told by SB1, by requirements of SB1, that their vote is going to be rejected.
Hi, I'm Ana Marie Cox. This is 90 Days with Ana Marie Cox. There are 40 days until the election. Those things are true, and they will remain true. However, today's show is not exactly 90 Days with Ana Marie Cox. It is 90 Days with Beto O'Rourke. He is the guest host today. He'll be interviewing our mutual friend Andy Brown, who is the Travis County judge, which means something slightly different in Texas than like a judge, but they'll probably explain that. And I will be back on Friday. See you then.
Hey everybody, this is 90 Days with Ana Marie Cox, and I'm Beto O'Rourke, pinch hitting for Ana Marie Cox, with Travis County Judge Andy Brown as our special guest today. The reason I wanted to have Andy Brown, County Judge of Travis County, Texas, on the show today is very often when we talk about the presidential race, we're looking at, the big picture, the top headlines, the traditional battleground states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. But very often these elections are decided on the ground at the county level. And there's something really interesting happening in Travis County right now. So I want to invite County Judge Andy Brown on to tell us a little bit about what he's doing, what he sees, and maybe even to venture some predictions about what might take place in Texas this year. But before we get into all of those deeper issues, Andy, I wonder if you could just begin by telling us a little bit about Travis County. For folks unfamiliar with Texas, what do we need to know about the county over which you preside?
Thanks, Beto. Yeah, great to be here, and thanks for doing this. So there's 254 counties in Texas, and each one of them has one county judge. And in most of the big counties, like the big urban counties, so Austin, which is Travis County, Houston, which is Harris County, Dallas, which is Dallas County, there's one judge who, instead of hearing cases like the county judge does in the small counties, only is the county administrator, the county executive, the emergency manager in times of COVID or freeze or fire, and then one member of the 5-member commissioners court, which is basically like a city council for the county government. So we do the $1.6 billion budget of Travis County, which comes from property taxes, and vote on policy and how to spend that money. And, Travis County as a whole, about, I think, 1.3 million people or so. The bulk of that is in Austin, which is about 800,000 people, but there's also smaller towns around. And it's a really fast growing county. It's, us and San Antonio and the counties around us are growing extremely fast. It's a Democratic county. We've got, Democrats typically win the general election here, 65 to 75% of the vote. And it's been a while since we've had a countywide Democrat. I think George Bush was the last national candidate to win countywide in Travis County. So it's a very blue county, very urban county inside the very large state of Texas.
So you made an important point that I want to underscore, which you're the county judge. For a lot of people, especially who are unfamiliar with county government in Texas, they may be forgiven for thinking that you are wearing a black robe, you are presiding over cases and trials and passing judgments on the people of Travis County. But as you just explained, you're really the chief executive of that county. You're akin to the mayor of Travis County, which includes Austin, Texas within it. So it's much more of an administrative function, political position, more than a judicial position. And in that role, and given the fact that you are, born and raised in Austin, this is your hometown, it's where you and your wife, Sarah, are raising your family. I'd love if you could give us just a little bit more about Austin. Some people think that Austin really isn't Texas. It's this, radically liberal blue place that is unreflective of the rest of the state. The other 253 counties look nothing like it. I think Ted Cruz infamously, when being interviewed by Evan Smith at one point, referred to it as the People's Republic of Austin, Texas. Is that in fact true? Is it this outlier, or is it part of what you think of as the real spirit or fabric of the rest of the state?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think so. When I grew up here, I think it had a real reputation. It was a, smaller city then, I guess around 300,000 or so, but it's always had the beautiful natural characteristics. So we've got Barton Springs, this like gorgeous spring-fed pool right in the middle of downtown. We have the other Colorado River runs through Texas and comes right through downtown Austin in what is now called Lady Bird Lake. We've got some lakes for sailboats, lakes for motorboats, and it's always kind of been the home of Willie Nelson. And I think and the University of Texas is here, and those have all sort of led to this kind of liberal myth about Austin, or maybe not a myth, maybe it was a truth. I think it was a liberal truth about Austin, kind of a storied truth. And even the environmentalists that are here that are really inspired by trying to save Barton Springs, they've got a lot of laws passed in the 80s to restrict development and preserve the great natural beauty that we have here. That has shifted a lot in the last 10 years in particular. We've got, Elon Musk came here and built a factory to build his electric cars here. I think he bought up a bunch of land for SpaceX and his other endeavors. He brought with him a lot of folks, frankly, from California who are also quite wealthy and have been kind of business partners or associates with him. The state has kind of cracked down a little bit on the University of Texas to where it maybe isn't quite the liberal beacon that it was when I was growing up here. And then just the business community, because it had so many environmental protections and kind of restrictions on development, it stayed this gem for a really long time, and it still is today. But I think that has brought a thriving business community here too. Samsung has located a chip company here 20 years ago and just built a second one just north of here. It attracts businesses, it attracts, the hippies and the environmentalists as well. But I would say today it is, there's more of like a sort of business climate here today than there was when I was growing up. And so I think it now is a little bit more like, in terms of what, the general philosophy climate maybe of local politics is probably a little bit more similar to Houston, Dallas, other urban areas than it was 20 years ago. But it's still, I think it is still a very unique place. And I absolutely love it, obviously, growing up here and now raising my kids here. But it's a favorite punching bag of the legislature. They love to say things like you quoted about what they sort of portray Austin as. At the same time, so many of them love to live here. I know we've got a lot of our, statewide Republican politicians that love living here, just like I love living here. And so, there's probably a lot of fiction about what they say Austin is like. And I think we just have really led the state on, investing in our public education system and investing in our environment and trying to think of alternatives to building roads. And it's made this community stay really special over the years.
Yeah, it's always been in my mind, and maybe in the popular imagination, the home of, freaks, hippies, punks, weirdos. There's a famous tagline in Austin, "Keep Austin Weird," as Austin went from this very organic, almost semi-rural part of Texas to this thriving tech and academic and industrial even hub for, the greater South, and certainly for the state of Texas. I think there's been this desire to keep its, natural character as so many people come into Austin and come into Texas from the rest of the state. But if Austin is in fact on the leading edge of Democratic Party politics in Texas, I would argue it's probably reflective of the larger trend that we see in this state. I love telling people about how Barack Obama in 2012 lost Texas by 16 points. Hillary Clinton lost Texas by 9 points 4 years later. In 2020, Joe Biden only lost Texas by 5.5 points. And those huge gains that has Texas trending towards the Democratic column faster than just about any other state in the union, all of that happened without much of any outside investment. Those three Democratic nominees that I just referred to didn't spend a second in our state. It's just really the natural trend or trajectory of this state, which brings me to the real reason I wanted to have you on right now. And that's this battle that you, Andy Brown, County Judge of Travis County, are in with our Attorney General, Ken Paxton. I'd love for you to talk about what you and the County Commissioner's Court in Travis County are attempting to do and what our Republican Attorney General has done in response. And then we'll get to the latest development from this past week in this story. And then I'd love for you and I to connect this into the national politics and the presidential race and the impact that it could have on the rest of the country, because I just think it is a fascinating story. So we know a little bit more about Travis County. We know about your role as county judge. What did you and the Commissioner's Court recently try to do when it comes to elections and voting in Travis County?
Yeah, so we've got this guy, Bruce Elfont. He's been our tax assessor collector for many, many years. He's, I think, retiring at the end of this year. He didn't seek re-election. And he has been working, he is a bureaucrat, a government worker in the best possible way. He does a very thorough, he's been working his tail off for years and years and years to register voters here, because the voter registration office in, most of the counties in Texas falls within the tax assessor collector, which is a whole other terrible history, but he's been doing a great job. And I think before COVID, he had gotten to just crazy high percentages of everyone in Travis County who's eligible to vote being registered. He's done wonderful work. COVID hit, like so many things, and it messed that up a little bit. So I think the voter registration rate has dropped a little bit in Travis County. It's still great. And frankly, Bruce is still leaving on top of his game, but there's more people to register that are not registered. And so we started looking at, what can we do legally and what can we not do legally in Texas? Because, Ken Paxton has sued every which way he can to try to make it harder and to vote in Texas. He's sued, he blocked 24-hour voting. He blocked drive-through voting. Like he really has a poor track record of relating to people's access to the polls. They banned us from sending out pre-printed vote by mail applications. So once people are registered and we want to send them a ballot, we can no longer do that unless they request it. But they have not banned, and in fact, they promote the concept of registering eligible voters in the county. There's a code in the state law that says that our Bruce Elfont, our tax assessor collector, can use state funds, Chapter 19 funds, to send mass mail to eligible voters to register them to vote. Jane Nelson, our Secretary of State, has videos on her website explaining how to do this and emphasizing the importance of counties and others to register people to vote who are eligible and not registered. So we're like, man, this is great. It's a bipartisan thing we can do. We could use state money for it. We can use county money for it. And so Bruce came to us with a proposal of how he wanted to do pretty large mailer to people who are not currently registered to vote, but are eligible voters. So he came to us with the proposal. We said, heck yeah, let's do it. That went out through the whole purchasing process. Counties in Texas have a very, very, in my opinion, difficult and slow process for getting vendors for the county. I think there's good reasons for that, but in practice, it's sometimes slow. So it went to the purchasing department. They put it out for a bid, left it to the public. Anyone in the public could bid on this. And then we got a vendor who bid on it, was the only vendor who bid on it in the end. That came back to Commissioner's Court. We funded it for, I think, up to $550,000 that we would spend on this project. And then Bruce kind of took it from there, worked with the vendor to get the thing going. And so, that again, it's a blank voter registration form that's coming from Travis County and going to these people that Bruce thinks are eligible voters, but are not currently registered. And then, if they want to register, they have to fill that thing out. They stick it back in the envelope, send it back to the county. Bruce then reviews it, determines, gets all their information entered into this database that then Jane Nelson, the Secretary of State, then decides if they're eligible or not. And my understanding from Bruce is that she checks it against social security numbers. They have several databases. There's like a national database and then something they have. So that's it. The state of Texas is not going to let someone who's not eligible to vote get through that process. So we sent the thing out. Seemed great. I guess Bexar County and Harris County sort of got wind of what we were doing. We'd heard nothing from Ken Paxton at this point. And they, I think, said something about how they wanted to do it. Ken Paxton got wind of that. And I guess he either sent letters or threats or something to Harris County and Bexar County saying, if you do this, I'm going to sue you. Harris County declined because they're frankly already sort of in the middle of stuff with Ken Paxton. Bexar County said, you know what? We have every right to do this. The state law says we can do it. They went ahead and did it. And then Ken Paxton sued Bexar County and Travis County. So Bexar County, San Antonio, Travis County's Austin. And, it's complete. It, to me, is a totally frivolous lawsuit trying to scare people in Texas. We looked at at the law. We were like, you know what? We're really sick of Ken Paxton continuing to scare people and filing lawsuits that sometimes he doesn't even pursue, that are meant to just put a fear in people and participating in the voting process. We decided that is in violation of the National Voting Rights Act. We consulted with lawyers, and there's a federal law that says state officials like Ken Paxton and Jane Nelson cannot do what they did here. And so we decided to fight back, assert our rights against Ken Paxton. We sued him in federal court, and that's pending right now in the Western District of Texas District Court. And when we sued him there, we removed the state lawsuit to federal court because they're all interrelated with one another. And then I think Bexar County did similar. They removed their action to federal court as well.
So let me see if I can break this down for everyone, even for myself. It's a lot to follow. It's a little bit confusing, and I think that's actually the point. Most other states allow you to register to vote online. So if you're not registered or you're wondering if you're currently registered, in most states you can go online, you can check your registration, you can update your registration, or if you're eligible and not registered, you can register to vote and you'll be ready to go. Many states have same-day voter registration, which means that on election day, if you get to the polling place, you go to vote, and they're like, sir, I'm sorry, you're not on the rolls. You're like, oh, shoot, I forgot to register. Let me get registered right now. They'll register you on the spot, and you can cast a ballot. Other states have what is known as automatic voter registration. You turn 18 years old, you're a U.S. citizen, you're otherwise eligible to vote, you automatically get moved onto the voting rolls, and you are ready to vote. In addition, there are states, Andy mentioned mail-in ballots that just send you the mail-in ballots to every single voter, no fault. You don't need to request it. You don't have to be over 65. You don't have to have a proven medically documented disability. We just want to make sure that you vote. And we want to make it as convenient as we possibly can for you. Texas does none of that stuff. So this Byzantine process that Andy just described of trying to get voter registration forms out to unregistered eligible voters in Travis County, having those voters or future voters who are interested fill those out, send them in, then having them checked by the Travis County voter registrar, the state of Texas Secretary of State. All of that is this really intensive process that just about only exists in Texas, that is nominally supposed to root out or prevent voter fraud, but effectively keeps millions of people from even getting registered to vote. And so, Andy, if I understand it, in Travis County, what you and the Commissioner's Court tried to do was mail out voter registration forms to any person who lives within your jurisdiction who you all believed was eligible but unregistered. And you don't ask, nor can you know, if they're a Republican, if they're independent, if they're a Democrat, if they're Green Party, Socialist, Libertarian, or John Birch Society. You just want to make sure that they are registered to vote so that they can participate in this next election. And when you did that, and Bexar County, which is home to San Antonio, and Harris County, which is home to Houston, considered doing that as well, that got the attention of our Attorney General, Republican Ken Paxton, who, in addition to being twice indicted, once impeached by the Republican majority legislature in Texas, was also one of the leading speakers at the quote unquote Stop the Steal rally on January 6, 2021. He's as MAGA as it gets for an office holder in the state of Texas. This guy sued you to stop you from just getting folks registered. And Andy, you also mentioned it's in line with other things that he's done, like trying to shut down 24-hour voting or drive-through voting, or raiding, LULAC, one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the state of Texas, on the pretense of voter fraud, sending his agents in to raid the home of an 87-year-old woman in South Texas. I don't think the point is to catch criminals or to stop fraud as much as it is to scare people or confuse people about voting. And in the past, I think Paxton and Republicans have been devastatingly successful at this. It's why Texas has one of the lowest levels of voter turnout in the nation. It's not because we don't love our democracy. It's not because we don't care about the issues. It's not because we don't want our voices heard or our votes counted. It's because we have people in power who are trying to keep others from being able to exercise their rights. So I want to land on the last thing that you said, which is after Ken Paxton maybe scared the Harris County Commissioner's Court from even sending out the voter registration forms, and then took you and Bexar County, which is San Antonio, to court, instead of meekly submitting to this or trying to fight the battle on the turf that Ken Paxton had selected, you all chose to take this to a federal court and invoke the Voting Rights Act, which was signed into law by the first president from the state of Texas, Lyndon Baines Johnson, in 1965. Tell me what that means. To me, it sounds like you're going on offense, which, just as somebody who loves democracy, I have been waiting for somebody to do. What does that mean for the future of this case and for your ability to get people in Austin and the rest of Travis County registered to vote?
Yeah, that great point. So I think 3 federal acts we sued under: National Voter Registration Act, I think the Voting Rights Act, and then one third one that I'm blanking on the name for it right now. But yeah, I don't know where this case will go. I know that I know that we are right on the law. It seems crystal clear to me, based on the statute that literally gives us the right to do this and to use state money for mail outs to people who are unregistered voters. The fact that the Secretary of State, that's one of her jobs, and one of the things she promotes is individuals and counties doing mail outs, doing other efforts to register voters. It seems to me, and from talking to our lawyers, that we are right on according to the law, that we have every right in the world to do this, and that what Ken Paxton and our Secretary of State, Jane Nelson, have done is literally violated federal law. They violated the National Voter Registration Act, which that act was known as the Motor Voter Bill. I think it started, under President Clinton. And then, of course, the Voting Rights Act started under LBJ. And that's a federal cause of action. It actually allows for attorney's fees. It is now in front of a federal judge. And so federal judges are not elected. They're appointed by a president, confirmed by the U.S. Senate. And I like to think, at least, that they're a little less political than other judges. So I feel good about where we are. But again, you never know. You never know if the judge is maybe going to see something that we didn't see. But I'm also so happy, and people in Austin and Travis County have let me know that they are so happy that we're not sitting by anymore. We're not just letting Ken Paxton sort of chip away at rights that we have to register voters, to do political activity around elections, that we're not going to take that standing down anymore. It's one thing, I think, for our governor and our legislature to have different political beliefs than I do. And that's great. Like every 2 years, we go to the legislative session, try our best to fight for what we believe in. They try to fight for what they believe in. And of the people who are elected, they get to hash it out and do it. But for Ken Paxton to start saying that, look, people can't even participate, they can't even enter the political process because he's going to play games with that and scare people out of even getting into that process. I've heard of, there's a friend of mine who is a political consultant for some, like, I think county party. It's not here. It's a different county in Texas. And they're questioning whether or not this, not even the state, it's a political party, whether they felt comfortable sending out some mailers to eligible voters just to like tell people to vote or vote by mail applications, which is still legal in Texas for non-governmental entities to do. They're afraid of doing that because of what Paxton has done to Travis County and Bexar County. And that's exactly what Paxton's trying to do. He's just trying to scare people, even if what he's saying is not constitutional. It's not according to Texas law. It's not according to federal law. He wants to scare people to keep this from becoming a state where everybody who is eligible to vote actually does vote and does participate.
The thing that I find so fascinating about all of this is that, we talked briefly about the Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed into law by President Johnson, reauthorized by bipartisan majorities roughly every 10 years. Barbara Jordan in the 1970s from Texas led one of the great reauthorizations of the Voting Rights Act to include language minorities. And it seemed like things were moving on, the right path towards greater participation, widening of the franchise, and protection for people who otherwise would have been persecuted by those who hold political power. Until in 2013, you have this Supreme Court decision, Shelby versus Holder, in which the Roberts Court majority absolutely gutted the Voting Rights Act. And in her scathing dissent, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg likened it to having an umbrella, the Voting Rights Act, in the middle of a rainstorm. The rainstorm is voter suppression, voter intimidation, and these policies that disenfranchise primarily Black voters, voters of color, and others who were deemed by those who held office to be a threat to their power. And she says, look, it's like we're folding up the umbrella in the middle of the rainstorm because the umbrella has kept us dry for so long, we just feel like we don't need it. And of course, we got soaked in the 11 years following that 2013 decision. You saw hundreds of polling places in Texas close down because we no longer had the protection of the Voting Rights Act. You saw a racial gerrymander of our congressional districts. You saw one ballot drop-off location per county in the middle of COVID in 2020, whether it's Travis County with over 1 million people or Harris County with 5 million people, one ballot drop-off location. All of these with the intent from the Republican leadership in our state to disenfranchise voters and to maintain their hold on power in the face of what I think is an irrevocable trend towards Democratic victories. I mentioned how much Obama lost by, and then just how close Biden was. In 2018, we got within 2.5 points of Ted Cruz, and we just got a poll this week that shows Colin Allred, it's a Morning Consult poll, up 1 point over Ted Cruz. That is, we don't know how accurate those polls are, but they certainly reflect the direction that this state is taking. And my belief is that those Republicans in power see this just as clearly as we do, and they're going to do whatever it takes to hold on to that power, even if it is illegal, even if it is outside of the law. Removing polling locations from Texas A&M campus, dividing Prairie View into 2 separate polling precincts to confuse the students there about what is happening, raiding the LULAC offices, suing Travis, Bexar County when they try to get voter registration forms out to people. The only way I think we fight back successfully, not so that Texas can be a Democratic majority state, but so that Texas can be a functioning democracy, is to make sure that we stand up and fight. And that's exactly what you, the Commissioner's Court, and the people that you all represent in Travis County are doing right now. And I think it's really exciting. And I think it's actually probably the only avenue left to us now that we no longer have the Voting Rights Act, and that for whatever reason, the Department of Justice isn't coming into Texas to enforce what remains of the Voting Rights Act today. So we're all really anxious about the outcome of this case in federal court. And again, to tie it back to the 45 days we have until November 5th, you never know, but 40 electoral college votes in Texas, that trend line that I described, either we are going to continue to incrementally get closer to Democrats winning, or some year, and it could be this one, it happens all at once. Kamala Harris shocks the world by winning the 40 electoral college votes in Texas and absolutely putting Donald Trump away and removing the fear that this is going to be an election too close to call, one that's going to be contested in the courts, one that might be decided by the House of Representatives because maybe Donald Trump convinces the Nebraska state legislature to have a winner-take-all program there. And even though Kamala wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, that northern blue wall, it's a tie, and it goes to the House of Representatives. Texas could be the relief from all of that anxiety and uncertainty and make this the clearest, most decisive election in recent American history. I think Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott, and Donald Trump for that matter, understand Texas in that light. And I think you do as well. And so I think this battle taking place in federal courts has really profound national implications. If more people can get registered to vote ahead of the voter registration deadline in Texas of October 7th, if more of those newly registered Texans vote, and if they happen to vote for Kamala Harris, Texas could be the deciding state in the most important presidential election we've ever had. And by the way, it might also decide the balance of power in the Senate if Colin Allred defeats Ted Cruz. And it might also, because we have three of the most competitive congressional races in the country, decide which party holds sway in the House of Representatives. So there is a lot riding on what is going on in Texas. And of the 254 counties, what's playing out in Travis County right now, I think could be absolutely pivotal. So thank you for coming on and helping to explain what's going on in Travis, because it helps to explain what's going on in Texas. And I would argue that what's happening in Texas has outsized impact on what's going to happen in this country. Last thing, before we let you go and wrap up the show, you've been involved in Texas politics pretty much your whole life. What do you think is going to happen in November? I know this is a tough question. We won't hold you to it. But I think given your experience, your history, and the position you're in right now at the heart of Texas in Travis County, you might have a perspective on this that could be valuable to us.
Yeah. I've been working on this kind of stuff since I think I interned on Ann Richards' campaign in 1994. Was the first sort of big involvement I had politically. I think I waited tables for money and interned with her during the day. Great experience, but yeah, we've been working every few years to try to win statewide. And obviously in 2018 came closer than I've ever seen in Texas with your campaign. And that was such a, after how many years is that from 94, 04, what is that? 24 years, if my math is right. It was a long time coming to see that. And it just, I think, shows that when you have somebody who is a great candidate and talking about the issues that matter to Texans, that we can win here. And I think, frankly, Ken Paxton sees that and is trying to do everything he can to frighten people. I think this year that we've got a great chance. I think we're going to win the White House. I hope that Colin Allred wins too. I see the poll numbers where he's a point ahead or a couple down, but we've got so much excitement now, I think, at the top of the ticket. And people in Texas are very fired up and excited. Once again, something I really hadn't seen since 2018 here is that we've got people interested in knocking on doors in their spare time for local parties and doing everything they can to help the local ticket and help Colin and help hopefully the national ticket. So I think we're going to be saying hi to President Harris after November and Senator Colin Allred. And I think that that's going to get us to a wonderful place in Texas. And that's where it's actually a competitive state and people realize that. And, from my opinion, the policy making will be so much better if people have to realize that they don't just have to talk to their primary base. They have to actually talk to real Texans and get real people's opinions about the direction the state should go. So I'm super optimistic about it. And I'm just so thankful, Beto, to you for everything that you're continuing to do. I know you didn't mention it much, but all the efforts that you're doing to register voters and get volunteers to go through that other Byzantine process of like becoming a deputy voter registrar and following all those Texas laws about how to do that. And you're doing it. And that is going to have a huge effect, I think, in November as well, by just getting more people into the process. So I'm very excited about it. I'm excited about where we are in Texas right now. So, and thank you so much for spending time to talk to me about it today.
Absolutely. I'm excited as well. Texas, potentially the biggest battleground state in the union. Don't sleep on us. Over the next 45 days, a lot is going to be happening here that might very well determine the outcome of our presidential election and our national politics. So please stay tuned. Big thanks to Ana Marie Cox for just doing this show in the first place and allowing Andy and I to take it over today. We're looking forward to her being back on the next episode. We wish you all well, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much to Beto, who is a genuine friend of the pod, and thanks to Andy as well. On Friday, this will return to 90 Days with Ana Marie Cox. Today, it is 40 days until the election, just 10 days to register if you live in a red state. Please do that if you haven't already. And I will see you on Friday. If you are watching this on YouTube, this is also a podcast. If this is a podcast you're listening to, it is also on YouTube. No matter where you are consuming it, please like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends and neighbors, however it is that you want to promote the show. We appreciate it.